Greetings, welcome to Weekly Update Wednesdays. My name is JD from Studio 2105. This week's featured question is about backing vocals. In this video, I'll share my approach to recording and mixing them. Are there any guidelines or best practices for recording and mixing background vocals? I'm also curious about where to pan them and the differences between doubles and harmonies. As with all things related to music and music production, there are no hard and fast rules. I don't think there are any guidelines or best practices to say except for the common sense ones. Use a good microphone, get a good clean recording, and capture a good performance. This is pretty much essential for any sort of recording, okay, no matter whether it's vocals, whether it's instruments. This question is often asked online and you'll get varying approaches and opinions as well. You know, you're gonna get some fancy techniques such as, right, or using a different microphone. You know, some people will suggest that, put the microphone a little bit further away, switch to a dynamic or switch to a ribbon, right, or switch your polar patterns. There are many ways that you can do, right, a lot of these so-called tips and tricks that you can employ when you record backing vocals. But let's be practical and let's just use the same setup, okay? Let's just talk about the same setup because this is also what I do. In the middle of a session, if you're working with an artist, right, who's very fast, there's really no time for you to be swapping out mics and checking things out. You just want to have everything all set up, ready to go, and just record. It's better to keep the vibe, right, of the session and the recording that way. I've actually covered a little bit of this subject right in the previous video. You can check this out, right, this video over there, but it'll be good to sort of refresh some of the key points right here. What I'll be giving you is how I do it, even though, here's a disclaimer, right, even though I've been doing this for like over 20 years, I've been in this business for that long, don't let me be the one to tell you what is the right or wrong thing to do, okay? Take back, whatever lessons or whatever techniques that you've learned from either me or any other YouTuber out there. Try it out, employ it, right? See whether you like it or not. If it sounds good, then go ahead, keep using it. If not, you're right, maybe it doesn't work for you. There are many issues or many factors. Maybe it's the style of music that you're working on. Maybe it's the room, or, very simply, it's the gear, and maybe you just hear things differently from other people. The beauty of music and audio engineering is that it's part art, it's part science, and figuring out what works best and, more importantly, what sounds best to you is all that matters. Let's start with doubles, right? Doubles are short for double tracks. Now, these sound best if they are as tight and as close to the lead vocal as possible. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Slight timing and pitch discrepancies, small differences are okay, right, to a certain extent. In fact, it is these small imperfections, right, these little variations in timing and the pitch, right, these are what helps give double tracks that size and that depth, right, that extra dimension that we are looking for. So how tight should these be? Now that again is a question that depends on the song production, the style. Some styles will benefit from a really tight performance, okay? While others, right, do allow for a bit of wiggle room. Again, you have to decide. If you're a producer and engineer, you got to decide, right, based on the song and how it sounds in context. One thing that's detrimental is to excessively tune the doubles. So sometimes we find that we already like maybe apply some vocal tuning or some, whether it be auto-tune or manual pitch correction, Melodyne or Variodio whatsoever. Sometimes you feel that you're tempted to also do that to the doubles, but if you tune the doubles too perfectly, what's going to happen is that they're going to start canceling each other out, and it's going to give you the opposite effect. Instead, okay, it's going to start sounding thin, it's going to sound hollow because, right, you get some phrase cancellation there. So what about harmonies? Well, right, as the name implies, these are backing vocal tracks that harmonize with the lead vocal, right? Most often, right, a third above, a fifth above, sometimes a fourth below, right, depending on what kind of sound or tonality you want. Now, in some circumstances, right, if you want to add a little bit more color in some songs, you may even add sevenths, right, or tensions, right, ninths, suspended fourths, and so on and so forth. Of course, all depends on the chord progression and the amount of color you wish to add to the vocal production. Obviously, the more parts that you add, let's say for example, right, from a standard you add a third above, you get a two-part harmony. You have the main melody and the third above that harmony. And then if you add like the fifth above or fourth below, then you have a 3-part harmony lah, okay? You can always expand further than that. But the more parts you add, remember, you make it sound a little bit more colored, right? It starts to sound a little bit more produced. So once again, the point I want to make here is it depends on the musical style and sometimes fashion, okay, right? I'm not really a fan of peppering a song with too many backing vocal parts. As the cliche goes, less is more and a little goes a long way. Now in hip-hop, some rappers may record several layers of doubles with each take. Sometimes they'll alter the tone, they alter the delivery of each take, right? There are some who want to go the more minimalist route and you just record one, right? A single part. Now for rock bands, I typically want to maintain, right, the illusion, the image of a band performing on stage. So, right, it'll be that single lead vocal with doubles only coming in to like reinforce during parts like the choruses or right like the middle eights or the bridges like that. Now on the other hand, with R&B vocal groups, very often, right, we're gonna end up recording 4 to 5 layers at least of each vocal part. But having said that, okay, there are also in some cases, for example 80s glam rock, that era, if you want to get that sort of sound, it's also a similar approach with, you know, many layers of vocals. Now if you're unsure about things, it is almost always better to record more parts than needed. If things start sounding overcooked, but you can always mute the parts, you can always remove it later. Parts that are needed in the mix. So what about the number of the double or how many parts that need to be recorded? Now my suggestion is to listen to reference tracks and break down the vocal arrangements. Take a reference track that's similar to the song that you're working on and try and listen, right, where the backing vocals come in. Are they doubles, right? Are they harmonies? Try to listen if it's like a single double layer that's in mono down the center, or is it something that's a little wider, right, towards the side? That always tells you that there's usually at least 3 or more vocal layers when you start hearing them at the side. But when it comes to the chorus of or any section of the song for that matter that needs beefing up, I personally like to record 2 tracks of doubles. So technically this is gonna be a triple track, alright? As I have the flexibility of panning these to the sides if I want to, right, hard left, hard right, or keeping them towards the center. That's the flexibility there. So as boring an answer as it sounds, right, it really again depends on what you're going for in the production. Once again, listen to the reference tracks, do what's needed, right, with the aim towards achieving something that sounds similar. So speaking of panning, let's talk about it. For many years, I was a very strict LCR person, and LCR has got really great benefits to it. But as time went by, I've sort of adopted more of a middle of the road approach when it comes to, right, backing vocals and you know, mixing with LCR. If you want to know what LCR is, right, I made this video a while back, you can go and check it out. So the one question you have to ask is how wide do you want the vocal parts to sound? Due to the fact that higher frequencies are directional in nature, it stands to reason that in order to have the widest stereo spread, you will want to pan the highest harmony parts as far out to the sides as possible. You pan it hard, left and right. Then the next highest parts, right, you pan it a little bit inward, right, either 75% or 50%, and progressively as that part goes lower in pitch, I would tend to move it towards the center, towards the middle. I keep it more towards the middle. Once again, this is not a rule, right, that you have to adhere to, and you can very well do exact opposite if you want to, right? Or even, you know, you want to do something a little bit different. You may even decide to pan one harmony part, let's say, right, the thirds to one side, and then pan another harmony part, right? Perhaps the fifths to the opposite side. Again, there's no right or wrong. If you want it to sound that way, that's perfectly fine. One tip though, if a section, right, or vocals, right, sound a little thin or it needs like a little bit of support or beefing up, but you don't want to add like harmonies or to color it too much, recording additional layers and octave below and blending these in, right, can help to add some weight. Of course, there are also other methods, right, where you can perhaps use like a pitch shifter plugin, like for example, right, one of the favorites that I like to use is, right, Sound Toys, right, little alter board. But there are others as well, right, from Waves and other companies. As long as you got some kind of a pitch shifter that you can pitch shift the vocal part and then you blend it in. Now, I'd like to add an opinion of mine about harmonies, right? About recording harmony parts. And I find that besides the situation or the instance where you only want a single harmony part, you know, whenever I'm given tracks, right, I'm presenting a song to mix that's been recorded elsewhere that has an odd number of harmony tracks. That means, right, either 3, 5, or 7. I pretty much will mute the third one, that extra one, because for me it presents a problem within the mix. You know, if I were to keep it towards the middle, it starts to compete with the lead vocal. But if I were to pan this extra track, remember it's odd, you see, because let's say, for example, if there's 3 tracks, I can pan one to left, I can pan one to right, and this third one, what I'm gonna do, if I were to pan this to the side, then it will cause this mix to be lopsided. Again, if I pan in the middle, it starts to fight with the main vocal. So what do I do, right? Most often the time, I'm just gonna mute that extra one. My recommendation is to record, right, even number of tracks. You wanna do 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on, that's fine. But don't record odd number of tracks like 3, 5, 7, and so on and so forth. So there you have it, right? Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful and informative as usual. Please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Consider becoming a patron. Do check out the Command Plus S affiliate link, which is down below in the description, right? To make cool gear for audio engineers, and they ship worldwide, okay? We got a discount code as well. Use Studio2105, you get 10% off. See you in the next one. Peace, love, and music.